I moved. So I'm really happy to welcome Deborah Armstrong to this Sheldon and Lewis show, as we're calling it. And I've had the privilege of hanging out in Scotland with Deborah, doing workshops uh, in her facility, in her office, in her town, and appreciating the haggis and the black pudding, which I so dearly love. And 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 going with her to see stone circles on farmers' lands and learning more about Celtic spirituality.
Mhm.
So we're excited to have you here tonight, Deborah, and we're happy that you can stay up late because I know it's 10 p.m. in Scotland, and we're really excited to find out what you're doing and more about stone circles and Celtic spirituality and anything you want to talk to us about. So, so tell us any further
Well,
introduction.
yes. Well, I'm a therapist in Scotland, and I try to help people to recover from trauma of different kinds. Um, and My office has changed. This is actually my office that I'm sitting in now. It's a very old farmhouse, which I'm doing up slowly. I've learned an awful lot in the last couple of years about lime pointing and lime plastering. In fact, you're looking at some of my not very good lime plastering in the background at the moment, and some of my lime pointing. And I'm very fortunate to live here because um, I was looking for somewhere to live for quite a while. And I had some people out on Vision Quest. And during that, when I was supporting them, I got quite a strong message for myself, which was that somebody was going to come and point out to me the place that I was meant to go and live. And we finished the quest, we were tidying up, and the gentleman who owned the land went, have you looked at this house? And it turned out that it was 5 days to the closing date. So I rushed and went and had a look. And it also turned out that the young lady who was showing me round, I'd done some healing for a long time in the past, I'd completely forgotten about. And she told me a heap more about the house, probably than she told most people. It's a very old building. And it's in a really interesting location because I'm at the end of a valley and there are stone circles either side of the valley all the way up. So to me, it has a really, really special feel and it's a great place to do some healing. Um, I'm Each stone circle in this valley has a different characteristic to it, a different feel, and I suspect was used for slightly different purposes. So I have two very, very close to the house that I go and work with regularly, and some further up the valley. But I have a lot of wonderful sites to tune into and talk to and work with.
Well,
So, what would you like to know, Lewis?
well, I'm I'm really interested in the whole culture of stone circles.
Mm.
And can you tell us more about what that's about? I mean, why did they, how did they come to do that? And what does it
Well,
mean?
That's a very interesting question because if you read the history about it, they'll talk about wooden logs and rolling these big stones over wooden logs. But if you've actually really looked at stone circles, the stones are absolutely massive. I mean, um, when I say absolutely massive, they're so big that you can't move them with a modern digger. And quite often they're buried. It's not just what you see above the ground, there's quite a lot under the ground as well. In this part of the world, the northeast of Scotland, we have more stone circle sites than anywhere else in Europe. And nobody really knows what they were used for. But if you're good at communicating with energy, they all have a very different feel. And I think they were used for different types of ceremonies, for different purposes. Um, I There's some locally that only have three stones, and they're tiny, but the energy there is extraordinary. And there's some where they had multiple rings of stones. In this part of the world, we've got a quite unique type of stone circle, which is called the recumbent stone circle, that you only find here and in Ireland, where in most stone circles, you may know, the stones all sit upright. But in a recumbent stone circle, there's one stone that lies on its side, and it has two flankers, one at either end. And that's a very special place. It's like the focal point of the stone circle. So if you want my feel for what was going on there, um, all sorts of ceremonies to do with every kind of thing you might want to have a ceremony for, whether it was healing or people coming together in celebration, perhaps at a marriage or a blessing. I've certainly worked with them doing blessings for newborn babies and the family. And in that ceremony, everybody in the community gifts something tiny to the infant and makes a promise to contribute something to that child's life.
Mm.
Whether it's, I'll always be a friendly face, or um, I'm really good at cooking. I promise to teach you something about cooking, or it doesn't matter. The importance is the sort of gifting of that to the child. And of course, at the same time, the person who's doing the gifting realizes that they have something that's very valuable to gift, whatever it is.
Yeah, fascinating. Well, and I also wanted to invite you to talk about the purification ceremonies that were done and what the Jesuits call sweat lodges, because
Mm,
I was intrigued to learn when we visited you that there was a technology of
mm,
building lodges completely out of stones without glue, without gorilla glue. And
yeah.
and I was fascinated by the line between the fire and the door that you
Mm,
created with um, a material that you lit on fire to go
yes,
from the fire into the lodge.
yes.
And I thought it was really exciting that there was a whole Celtic technology of, revitalization ceremonies. So can you talk to us a little more about that?
Well, they're in many ways similar to the revitalization ceremonies I've done with you, with rounds of meditation and prayer. And sometimes there's a theme for the ceremony, um, depending what we're dealing with. Fire was very important to the Celts. There are a lot of fire ceremonies or fire involved in ceremony. And the way that I was instructed, it was about linking the fire and the sort of the healing fire on the outside to the stone pit in the center of the lodge, and that's a really important energetic link. Um, the revitalization ceremonies here were built, the lodges were built of stones, and we think that some of them may have had turf roofs as well. In fact, I went on a whole turf building course with an experimental archaeologist trying to work out how to do this safely, and he got very excited about the concept. I must admit, I have not personally gone ahead and done that yet because I need a bit more building expertise to make sure it's absolutely safe. And sadly, there's no living ancestors to tell me exactly how to do it. So when I'm doing revitalization ceremonies, I tend to use a very similar structure to the one that you do with willow or sometimes hazel, depending what's available, branches. Um, there's certainly a tradition of using the revitalization ceremony. There are old structures that you can go into where you can feel the energies of that. They're fairly well hidden. If you don't know that they're there, you won't find them. Like many of the really interesting to me stone circle sites, if you don't know that they're there, you won't necessarily find them. But they are there, and they're all situated where earth energy lines meet, or some people call them ley lines. It's quite possible there was a stone circle on the land that I own. And in fact, I believe that the stones, or a number of the stones from it, are still here. Because
Mhm.
although they have been pulled apart, as was quite common on farming land, the energy is still in those stones and I can feel it. So at some point, there will be a stone circle restoration project to do. Um, what would you like to know? Because really, it's a very similar ceremony to all the ones I've experienced with you. And of course, everyone I've experienced with you has been different. And I'm sure our ancestors were doing something very, very similar. They were responding to the needs of the community in whatever way was required, or doing the purification setup for another ceremony.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the fascinating thing, that this is a global phenomenon.
Mm,
It's not um, limited to one continent, that it's around the globe. And everyone
mm,
seems to have their variations on the theme. Our friend Rocky Crocker went to ceremonies, revitalization ceremonies in Uzbekistan, and
mm.
they were incredibly similar to what we do, with the exception that during the break they drank vodka. So,
Okay, I'm not sure how that would go.
well,
In
they are, Uzbekistanians.
Yes,
I,
yeah.
I wouldn't dare to call them Russians. but
Hmm.
because they're not. But uh, you get the idea, I think, that it's a different
Yeah,
over there. Probably the water was terrible. They couldn't drink the water, so they drank the vodka. I think that was true in
possibly.
England too, once upon a time, that the water was so dangerous that everyone drank weak beer.
That's right. Yes. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Um,
During the time of Ben Franklin, who made a fortune by loaning people money to buy beer while he was a printer in England.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Then of course he came to Philadelphia and became he got the government contract for things like the Declaration of Independence because he was the only printer that was sober at 3 in the afternoon.
That's quite a story.
Although he is famous for saying that beer is proof that God loves us and wants us to be happy.
Oh my goodness. Yes, I can think of lots of ways of having proof that we're loved. But beer wouldn't be the first one that would spring to mind.
Well, that's because you're not Benjamin Franklin.
No.
And he did get his face on the $100 bill in the United States, so
Did. And it's still there.
it's still there.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think one of the special things about the stone circles here is that they're made of granite, and granite is a very interesting rock. Um, it apparently holds quite a lot of water, although you wouldn't think so to touch it. And therefore, it can hold quite a strong energetic imprint. Um, there are other structures in the world where I know they've used granite as part of them in ceremonial sites. Now, it's the common stone here, and it's very, very hard wearing.
Yeah.
But you will find in all the stone circles, there will always be one pink granite stone, and
Mm.
that usually has some very special qualities to it. Um, the pink granite came from specific quarries. We know where the local one was, and it's different to all the others. Most of the others are either grey granite or a bluish tinted granite.
Mm.
Wow.
So in a stone circle, it's a bit like each stone is a member of the family and they have slightly different characteristics. So depending on what you need, you can sit and meditate with a different stone and you will get something appropriate to you.
Wow.
In fact, it's quite often interesting to invite people, as I do, to go into the stone circle and touch each stone and ask which one they've to work with. And everybody will choose a different stone. And it actually tells me quite a lot about what the individual is dealing with, whichever stone they end up sitting with.
Mm. Mm.
You also get very different energies on different occasions. You can go to work with a stone circle and basically, because I always ask permission beforehand on which one I'm meant to go and work with on whatever occasion. And some will go, no, not today. And others will go, yes, absolutely. Please bring whatever group or individuals. Um, they have quite a strong personality, if you like.
So are you asking the stones themselves?
I'm asking the sites
Uh-huh.
permission.
Uh-huh.
So I suppose if you thought about it as a family, there's an overall energy of that site. And some of them are blunter and more direct. So if you don't want a really big shift, don't go to that one. and some of them are more gentle, and different things are appropriate for different groups at different times.
Mm. It's interesting
Does that
because,
make sense?
oh, yes,
Makes
yes.
a lot of sense.
Yeah. You know, here where I live in Maine is also
Mm.
granite. And
Oh.
the stones from here were used to build the post office in New York City.
Mm.
The granite came from an island off the coast of Maine called Vinyl Haven Island. And New Hampshire, which is next door to us, is also full of granite mountains. So
Mm.
it's very interesting how that works. Though I have to say that the place in Europe that looks exactly like Maine is Finland.
Ah.
So yes, I went to a conference just outside of Helsinki at a university, and I was like, I'm home. Where am I? This looks, I mean, it was white birch trees and big boulders and lakes and an ocean. And I'm like, I flew all the way across the world and I ended up in Maine.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah. So, and Scotland did not look like Maine, I will say. It was,
Depends which part, I suppose. It's very varied in Scotland.
mm. Well, you know, this last year we walked the West Highland Way this last
Oh, yeah.
October. Yeah. So that was what, about 160 kilometers from Fort Williams to somewhere in the south. I can't remember the name of the town, but it was gorgeous. It was amazing. And we came upon some stone circles on our walk.
Mm.
Um, and some of them were not identified, and some
Mm.
of them were identified with a little sign that said, "Hey, look, you guys, here's a stone circle." But we found some that were not labeled. And we also came across some um, stone circles around like dips, like little concavities in the earth.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and I went into some of them. The ones that I went into, I felt incredible energy in the
Mm.
center of the dip, of the concavity,
Yeah.
surrounded by the stones. And, um, you know, it was really amazing. Of course, being Scotland, it was always raining.
Apart from right now, when it's been pretty hot for us. But yes, often raining, particularly the West Coast, you see. If you want to avoid the rain, you have to come to the East Coast and visit me.
Right. Well, we were on the West Highland Way, which is the
Mm.
West Coast.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
always raining.
It's always raining, yes.
Although
Yeah.
we did encounter um, someone who promised us that there were occasional dry days. So I said, prove it. But it was hauntingly beautiful, the West Highland Way. The
Mm.
stone circles were really powerful. And,
Oh,
and
yes, very.
I had
Um,
some sense that there were powerful ceremonies that went on in those, you know, concavities surrounded by stones.
I would think so. Yes. Um,
Mm.
One very interesting place to visit, other than Aberdeenshire, is the Orkney Islands.
Oh, yes, yes.
And you can feel the power of what was going on there
Mm.
quite strongly.
Hmm.
But most stone circles, if you go and visit them, either with a group that's there for ceremony or you're just on your own, you will feel the energy of them. Sometimes it's concentrated in the center, and sometimes it's concentrated at the recumbent stone.
Mm.
There were definitely interesting things happening at the recumbent stone.
Wow.
And from what I've studied, or what people have shared with me of Celtic ceremonies that still survive, our ancestors had ceremonies for grieving, for getting rid of anger from the body, for all sorts of things. I was gifted some ceremonies by an Irish Celtic elder who had learned them from her grandmother. And in Ireland, some of the ceremonies have survived, whereas in Scotland, unfortunately, there was so much persecution that most of them died out completely.
Mm.
So the only way to access them is to go and ask the energies that are still there in the stone circles as to what was going on or what we're meant to do now, which may not be quite the same
Mm.
because we're dealing with slightly different situations most of the time.
Right.
Certainly our ancestors were going and asking questions about what crops to sow, where and when, and blessings for the harvest, and the hunt, and so on. And
And
sometimes that's relevant now,
yeah,
but sometimes it's other things that are.
like how to keep
And
up the pesky English.
well, yes, but remember you're talking to a pesky English, so I don't do too much of that one. Yeah, actually, it's really interesting. Everybody here is a mixture of just about everything. I know in my case, I'm part Viking, part English, part Scottish, part you name it, because the United Kingdom as a whole has been invaded so many times by so many different nations. It's a
Right.
real melting pot of all different cultures.
Right.
Um,
And
so you and I both have Viking heritage.
yes. According to one DNA test that I had, my European ancestors were Swedish and Greek. And it turned out
Mm.
that Swedes were recruited by one of the clans, I think the McGregor clan, or I don't know. Barbara would know. But anyway, they were recruited as soldiers to fight against the English.
Mm.
And there was
Likely.
yes, and the name was Gad. That was our
Mm.
family name, and it meant the word meant lancers on horseback. So
Ah.
that was sort of interesting. And then
Mm.
I was trying to figure out the Greek thing, and it turned out there was a whole Greek legion of the Roman army in the first century AD that disappeared into Scotland. Like they just
Mm.
evaporated.
Yeah.
They just
Yeah.
weren't native. You know,
Well, I think so. I think they married and settled and kept pretty
Right.
quiet about it. They quite
exactly.
liked it here.
They said, this is a lot nicer than being a Roman soldier. Let's just disappear.
Yeah.
Who likes Rome anyway? They're a bunch of, hotheads.
There's something else I can tell you about the stone circles here that's special to this part of the world,
Mm.
which is that they're all orientated so that they're aligned with moon rise and moon set. on specific dates.
Wow.
Whereas the recumbent stone circles in Southern Ireland are lined with sunrise and sunset on specific dates. So we know that our ancestors were very interested in the phases of the moon and the alignments with the moon.
That's also very interesting to me because our current Sundance that we just came back from, the leaders are lining it up with the phases of the moon. And we dance at night also, and not just under the sun, but we dance at night for the full moon.
Wow.
So they plan the dates so that we will have a full moon. And we dance all in white. Under the full moon.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Well, it may be a unique vision of our leaders of this particular dance. Which they get to have their own vision. But it's interesting.
I have certainly danced overnight in stone circles, and there is something very special. I mean, I could tell stories. I don't know. It's something your audience would be interested in, but
of course they would be. Well, stories.
There's a women's ceremony, an overnight dance, which I did frequently in a specific circle. And from this circle, we could see the site of another one. And we would light a fire in the center. So we had a stone pit in the center and light a fire in that for the duration of the dance. And this other stone circle was, you could see it on the horizon. And when we were dancing, you could look over there and it looked like there was a fire in the other stone circle. But we absolutely knew that there wasn't. There was nobody there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, no.
The other thing is, sorry, when we were dancing, quite often it would rain.
Wow.
But those of us who were dancing wouldn't know it was raining. It was only when we left the circle that we found the ground was wet. It was inside the circle, no rain had fallen.
Wow.
Oh,
but the ground outside was absolutely soaking, as people found out when they left.
Wow.
This is so interesting to me. I'm Jewish, and our calendar is lunar, and there's a lot of fascination with the new moon and the full moon. A lot of the major holidays are on full moons, and all of our holidays and our Sabbath start in the evening. So it's always sunset to sunset. So there's something really ancient about this.
The Celtic ceremonial dates start in the evening, all of them. And about half of them are fire ceremonies. So it doesn't matter what version of Celtic you're dealing with, the moon was very important. But in this particular corner of the Celtic lands, they were definitely working predominantly with the moon, because otherwise they wouldn't have orientated all the stone circles to the moon phases.
Well, that makes sense. Also, as you were speaking, I realized that we always welcome in a holiday or the Sabbath with fire.
Ah,
We
really?
always we
Well,
always light candles. Yeah,
yeah, of course.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Mm,
I think a lot of this stuff is so innate,
mm,
you know.
yeah.
Mm.
There's so many echoes in these different traditions.
Mm,
Well, and there it seems like there's a trans-global perspective, or there something is common all around the world among original people who um, have nature religions, and I think um, I'd like to get your input on this, Sheldon, but I think the Jewish religion was initially a nature religion, and it got taken over by a book
Yes,
religion. Yeah,
yes, yes, that's true.
yeah.
And I think that's true of a lot of religions.
Hmm.
That the academics take over and the mystics the mystics get, marginalized.
Right, right. So true.
Yeah.
Well, and you think about that with the Sufis. I mean, it it's so incredible, the Sufi philosophy, and it almost has no relationship to conventional Islam.
Right.
Yeah. And yet it came from that, or maybe that came first and then the books appeared. The books are when the books appear, one should run, barely.
Well, it's so interesting what you're saying, Deborah, because it sounds like um, these traditions weren't necessarily passed down in terms of the healing rituals, but that they're still somehow available.
yes. Yes. Because the energy of them is there. And the way to get them back is to sit there and meditate. And when you're meditating, doing healing on yourself, you quite often get images or messages. For instance, I've sat in stone circles and seen them very different to how we see them now, very brightly colored.
Mm,
And I think our ancestors used natural dyes and ochres of various kinds. To me, it actually looked quite gaudy, but very, very bright.
mm,
And very interestingly, I was up in Orkney at the Nessa Brodgar where they did a major excavation and they discovered pigments on the stones in some of the structures. And I thought, aha, yeah, that's pretty much what I saw.
mm.
So um, I think that our ancestors were doing some quite extraordinary things. And sooner or later, we will relearn some of the things they were doing, perhaps as is appropriate to nowadays.
Well, it sounds like that's happening.
I certainly hope so. It's, that's that's my passion, um, but it's one step at a time.
You know, what's interesting to me is that I've been um, reading and rereading this book by Vine Deloria Jr. called The Way We Once Were, or something like that. And there are these incredible stories of um, medicine people, of moving matter, changing matter.
Mm, mm,
And I was thinking, you know, we as a world, we've lost that capacity for the most part in
mm,
search of um, some materialistic constancy, and
mm,
and it seems to me really too bad. And I suspect that the Celtic um, leaders, cultural people, I don't know what to call them. I suspect that they also moved matter. And
Well, it would explain how they managed to move such massive rocks
yeah,
that are very hard for us to move with modern equipment, because I've been involved in the rebuild of some stone circles with the original stones. And one of the farmers involved went, oh, and nearly broke my loader, because that's how heavy it was. And that was a much smaller stone than that we're talking about than some of the ones in the circles I work with. So yeah, I think they could move things.
you know, Vine Deloria talks about, I think it was a Blackfoot saying, might have been blood, but that matter is frozen thought. And
Mm,
if you want to move matter, you just have to thaw the thought and
mm,
take it somewhere else and then refreeze it.
mm.
And I've just been so enthralled with that quote from him, which came from an elder, of course. Um, just to think about thawing matter, like um, that it can
You
be.
know,
Yeah,
sorry,
no, go ahead.
I didn't mean to interrupt. Something just jumped into my mind. One of the other interesting features we have in this part of the world is something called vitrified forts.
Mm,
That's what the archaeologists and historians call them. And they're on a number of our hilltops here. And the story we were all told in school in the history classes was that our ancestors packed mud and sticks around these rocks and set fire to it, and it actually got the stones to melt.
wow.
Now, they've done experiments more recently and found that they cannot, no matter how hard they try, get these rocks to melt into these structures that we have. And they're interesting. So I think it was more than thawing. I
Yeah.
think there was a bit of sizzling as well.
Well, I've come to the conclusion that our ancestors had an incredible thought technology or mind technology that's largely been lost in favor of material technology. And
Can I say something there?
yes, of course.
It's just a nuance. I feel it wasn't mind technology, it was a heart technology,
Mm, mm,
because that's where the power is
yeah.
and can only be achieved if the heart is pure and clear, and all the stuff that makes us what we aren't truly are, all the baggage has been dumped and
Mm,
swept away.
mm. Yeah, I think I long for those days, for being able to participate in that world. And it certainly doesn't exist for me anymore or at the present time, though I can fantasize it. I mean, I can imagine it. But Vine Deloria Jr. tells stories about, you know, medicine people who were shot with bullets and they just
Mm,
collected them, spit them out of their bodies,
mm,
and nothing happened bad to them. And I'm like, well, my conventional training would say, that's crazy. That never could happen. But my indigenous knowledge says, of course it could happen. It just isn't so accessible now.
Well, I don't have an experience with bullets. I do have an experience when I was in Orkney once of very much feeling I was meant to visit a site. And it was what's called a chambered cairn. So basically, this is a rock structure that's dug into the ground. And this particular one had a hatch cover on it that was supposed to slide. Have I told you this story, Lewis?
No, you haven't.
No. Anyway, so the hatch cover was jammed. It was just me and my good friend Lisa there. And we struggled and struggled and struggled. And she said, "Are you absolutely sure we're meant to get in here? You know, maybe this is an energetic no." And I'm going, yeah, I feel we are. And so we had one last try. She hauled and I shoved. And just as this combined effort took place, the hatch suddenly slid open. And so if you can imagine, I'm kneeling at the edge of the hole, having shoved with all my might against this hatch cover, which is now slid fully open. And I'm spread-eagled over this abyss, which is a sheer drop down onto a flagstone floor with a vertical ladder going down into this structure. And my friend was sitting there thinking, oh my goodness, how am I going to get her out of this? Because I couldn't get up. I had nothing to push against. And then from my point of view, I just suddenly was able to sit up.
Mm.
And what my friend saw was that I was thrown backwards away from the hole.
Mm.
I could certainly feel energy holding me up so that I didn't fall in. It was a quite incredible feeling, and one I feel very blessed to have experienced. I did not expect it. In fact, the interesting thing was I wasn't scared at any point. And when I thought about it afterwards, I really should have been, because that was a sheer drop. You know, I would have gone in head first, and probably needed somebody like Lewis to put me back together again. But that was quite an experience.
Mm.
Wow, that's amazing.
There is a lot of energy at these sites, and there's a lot of love at these sites. And I think,
oops, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say back to the heart.
Yes.
Because when you were speaking, I was thinking that there's a psalm in the Bible that says, "Who will ascend to the mountain of the Lord? One who has clean hands and a pure heart."
Mm.
Mm.
So I think, going back to your question about the ceremonies, just like the ones I've experienced with you, and I'm really grateful for all these ceremonies that you led for me, all the ones that you allowed me to come and experience. That changed my life, Lewis, completely. I'm really, really grateful. Sheldon, if you don't know this story, I was claustrophobic and had to get through that to get through any revitalization ceremony. And it was Lewis that helped me through that.
Mm.
So all of these are about cleaning our hands and enabling our heart to be what it really is, I think, or I feel. And every single ceremony that I've done with you and with the elders in the States has helped in that. And I'm pretty sure I'm very happy. Please give me your opinion because you're much more experienced than I am. But it feels to me that that is the basis behind all ceremonies, that we're
Yeah,
peeling off the layers and getting back to who we really are.
yeah,
Yeah.
mhm, right. And it's transnational,
Yeah,
transcultural. Yeah,
because funnily enough, human beings are the same, doesn't matter where they are.
right.
And our ancestors were very wise, doesn't matter where they were.
We just have this pesky problem with capitalism that we have to do.
I think we have a pesky problem with human nature.
Maybe, yeah.
Very
Yeah.
easy to get distracted.
Yeah.
For me, anyway.
Although you could say it's Ferengi nature.
Ferengi. Oh, hang on. You're going to have to remind me what Ferengi is.
They're beings in Star Trek with their
Oh, okay. Oh, that's the modern Star Trek. I like the
uh,
old one.
the laws of acquisition, the Ferengi law.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
All for me and none for you.
But if we're living from fear, then that's what happens, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and in this country at the present time, I suspect the billionaires will figure out that they can't actually get along without the people that they're trying to exclude. That without migrant workers, the fruit will die on the vines, and the vegetables will not be harvested, and the things that they take for granted will not happen. And they might be surprised at the, the lack of success of the Ayn Rand philosophy. I mean, that's at least, I hope that's what happens. We'll see.
Maybe no matter what other people are doing, we can change what
Mm,
happens for us.
I hope so.
Well, if we are a creative and loving, powerful, energetic being in a flesh form, then perhaps there's more we can do to change our world than we're encouraged to realize. Perhaps.
Yeah, I hope so. Well, maybe that's a good note to end on.
Yes.
Yeah.
I hope this has been helpful.
It's
I think
wonderful.
it's,
Yeah.
it's like me as a novice speaking to, sorry, I don't know you, Sheldon. I know Lewis. And it's like, what can I say that would be helpful to somebody like Lewis?
Well, you know what you know, and it's really wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we
I
really,
love this place. I truly do. Um, it's a very special place to live.
mm,
If you saw the house, you might not think that because I have a lot of work to do on it. I have a whole chimney to rebuild. I've been slowly rebuilding bits and sorting it out.
well,
But the energy here is just amazing. Absolutely amazing.
incredible. At least it's not on the registry of historic places. So you
No, no, it's not.
so you
No.
don't have to use donkey dung.
I think they would make me use lime, which I'm doing anyway, because I've learned a lot about how to get these buildings to not be cold, damp, and not great places to live. I've learned a lot about how to make them comfortable and warm.
Very good. And
Right.
without donkey dung, as in
But with
I couldn't do that. I've got some horse dung, but I don't have any donkey dung.
but with a warm heart.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, yes,
All
yeah.
right. Well, I'm going to stop the recording now. And if I can figure out how, there must be a way.
Rather you than me.
There's a button up there somewhere.